People were rushing, trains were screaming, and life was loud, until one homeless mother whispered to a stranger, "Hold my baby. I need to sing." And when she opened her mouth, every single person in that station stopped. Because what came out didn't sound human. It sounded like heaven. "Wait, ma'am, are you okay?" Ethan didn't usually talk to strangers. He wasn't the type to get involved. He was on his way home from another long shift at the electronics store, exhausted, hungry, and counting the minutes until he could collapse in bed. But the sight of the woman on the concrete made his heart stop. She was sitting on the cold ground, her back pressed against the metal railing of the subway entrance. Her clothes were worn to threads, sleeves stretched, fabric faded from too many days under too many skies. Her hair was tangled, falling over her face in messy curls. And her expression, God, it looked like the whole weight of the world had fallen on her shoulders. Yet that wasn't what made Ethan speak. It was the baby. A tiny girl wrapped in a fading pink blanket, her small head resting against her mother's chest. The child blinked up at the world with big, curious eyes, innocent, unaware of the chaos around her. The blanket was frayed, edges curling, but the way the mother held her, so careful, so protective, showed love stronger than any hardship. Ethan stepped closer, his voice gentler this time. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" The woman lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were glossy, distant at first, like she had been drifting somewhere far away and had to fight to return. Her lips were pale, her breathing uneven. She tried to speak, but only a soft rasp came out. Then, with effort, she whispered, "Please, can you hold my baby? Just for a moment." Ethan froze. He wasn't expecting that. Who hands their child to a stranger? Who trusts someone they've never met? But the way she looked at him, her eyes full of desperation, yet still holding a quiet dignity, pulled him in. She wasn't careless. She wasn't unstable. She wasn't trying to escape. She was tired, bone-tired, a kind of exhaustion Ethan had never seen before. People walked around them, stepping over cracks in the pavement but never stopping to help. Some glanced at her briefly with annoyance or pity, but no one paused. No one cared. It was like she was invisible. Ethan swallowed hard, unsure, his hands shaking slightly. You want me to hold her?" The woman nodded weakly. Her hands trembled as she shifted the baby toward him. Ethan hesitated for one more second. He had never held a baby before, but instinct took over. He reached out, and she carefully placed the tiny bundle into his arms. The moment the baby settled against his chest, Ethan felt something soften inside him. She was warm, light, a little fragile thing wrapped in faded pink. Her small fingers reached up, brushing the collar of his shirt like she already trusted him. Ethan's breath caught. "Hey there," he whispered, awkward but sincere. "It's okay. I've got you." The mother let out a shaky exhale, as if handing the baby over allowed her lungs to finally fill with air. "Are you hurt?" Ethan asked, worry tightening his voice. "Do you need an ambulance? Should I call someone?" She shook her head quickly, too quickly. "No," she said, her voice cracking. "No. I need a moment. I need to breathe." Her eyes fluttered shut for a second. She pressed a hand against her forehead, swaying slightly as if the world around her was spinning. Ethan took a cautious step forward, still holding the child. "Ma'am, you don't look okay. Are you sick? Did you eat today? Do you need water?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the baby, her baby, with a love so fierce it made Ethan's throat tighten. Then she looked back at him. "I'll sing," she whispered. Ethan blinked. "Sing." The woman pushed off the railing, unsteady but determined. She stepped toward the open subway entrance, where crowds poured in and out, faces blurred, lives busy, footsteps loud. She stood there for a moment, like she was trying to gather strength from the ground beneath her. Her shoulders rose with a slow breath. Her eyes closed, her hands, still shaking, pressed gently against her chest. Ethan watched her silently, the baby murmuring softly in his arms. He didn't understand what she was doing. He didn't understand why singing was the thing she chose to do when she looked seconds away from collapsing. But something told him not to interrupt. People brushed past the woman, not paying attention. A businessman nearly bumped into her, muttering under his breath. A group of teenagers laughed loudly as they rushed by. Someone tossed a gum wrapper without looking. She stood alone in the middle of all of it. And then she opened her mouth. But instead of singing, she paused. She looked back at Ethan, her voice fragile but sincere. "My voice is the only thing I have left," she murmured. "It's how I survive, how I earn enough to feed her. When people hear me, sometimes they stop. Sometimes they help. Sometimes they remember I'm human." Ethan felt the baby's grip tighten on his shirt. The mother offered a weak smile. "I never wanted to burden anyone. I just need a little strength before I begin." Ethan nodded slowly. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." Her eyes softened, grateful, relieved. Then she turned back toward the subway. The cold wind tugged at her clothes. Trains roared in the distance. Hundreds of footsteps echoed on the stairs. But she stood still, her back straightening, her chin lifting slightly, as if she was rising after a long fall. Ethan held the baby closer, feeling this strange heaviness in his chest. He didn't know this woman. He didn't know her story. But he knew one thing. Whatever she was about to do, it mattered. She inhaled slowly, deeply, like a singer preparing for the performance of her life. And when she finally sang, the entire station stopped. The subway station was loud, too loud. A chaotic storm of screeching trains, overlapping conversations, blaring announcements, and hurried footsteps hitting the concrete floor like a constant drumbeat. The kind of noise that made people walk faster, think less, and ignore everything that wasn't directly in front of them. But then the woman opened her mouth to sing. And it was as if the world forgot how to make sound. Her first note cut through the air like a gentle blade, soft but sharp enough to slice through every other noise in the station. The trains didn't actually stop. The people didn't actually freeze. But it felt like they did. Her voice wasn't just good. It was heavenly, the kind of voice that felt like it came from a place untouched by time. Raw, powerful, beautiful in a way that made the heart ache. There was pain in it, deep pain, but also hope, love, a story, maybe many stories. It was as if she carried entire lifetimes inside her chest, locked away behind ribs that had been bruised by life, yet still strong enough to hold a universe of emotion. Ethan stood there frozen, his arms wrapped around the small baby girl. He felt her tiny body jerk slightly as the first note reached her ears. Then something incredible happened. The little girl relaxed, her hands unclenching, her breathing evening out. And slowly, her small head turned toward her mother's voice as if guided by invisible strings. Her tiny fingers curled tightly around Ethan's shirt, almost like she recognized the melody. Ethan swallowed hard. The baby, she wasn't just hearing the song. She was remembering it. A lullaby? A song her mother used to hum? Something she heard in the womb? Whatever it was, it had the power to calm her instantly. People who were rushing to catch their trains slowed down, as if pulled by some unseen force. A man in a suit stopped mid-step, balancing on the edge of the platform. A teenage girl removing her earbuds hesitated, confused as to why she suddenly preferred silence. Others halted completely, turning toward the woman like she was a magnet, and they were iron. A group of tourists looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. A mother pushing a stroller stopped and whispered, "She'll listen, do you hear that?" Some people even put away their phones, a miracle in itself. A man leaned toward his friend and whispered, almost afraid to disturb the moment, "Is that her? The homeless singer people talked about? The subway angel?" His friend shook his head slowly, eyes wide. "No, this voice is different. This is something else. This is once in a lifetime." Her singing grew stronger, each breath filling her words with emotion. The melody echoed against the tiled walls of the underground station, bouncing from one corner to another until it wrapped around everyone like a warm blanket. It was impossible, but the cold station felt warmer. It wasn't just singing. It was healing. Ethan felt his eyes well up. His throat tightened, and he blinked rapidly, trying to stop tears that had no reason to be there. Except there was a reason. Her voice told a story he didn't know, but somehow understood. It spoke of struggle, of loss, of a heart that had cracked but refused to break, of a mother who had nothing, but still gave everything. He realized then that she wasn't singing for money. She was singing for survival, for her baby, for herself. The baby sighed softly, her small hand pressed over Ethan's chest, as if feeling the vibrations of her mother's voice. Her tiny fingers tightened again, this time not in fear or discomfort, but in recognition. She knew the song. She knew the love in it. She knew the woman singing it belonged to her. And Ethan, who moments earlier had been a complete stranger, felt overwhelmed by the rawness of it all. A middle-aged woman near the ticket machines covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaming freely. A young couple stopped arguing mid-sentence, turning toward the sound with softened eyes. A police officer paused mid-step, his serious expression melting into something gentle. Even the station workers, who had heard every performer, every busker, every musician, peeked out of their booths, stunned. It didn't matter who they were, what they believed, or what their lives looked like. Her voice reached them in places they didn't know were vulnerable. Ethan could hardly breathe. He didn't even know why this strange, unexpected moment was breaking him open like this. But he knew what he was feeling wasn't ordinary. He looked at the woman, her eyes closed, her hands trembling slightly as she held a final note that seemed to vibrate in the air. Her face wasn't glamorous. Her clothes weren't new. She didn't look like the kind of person people usually stop for. But her voice? Her voice was everything the world needed and never bothered to look for. Suddenly, Ethan understood something painfully clear. This woman wasn't homeless because she lacked talent. She wasn't homeless because she lacked intelligence or strength or passion. She was homeless because the world never gave her a chance to be heard. Not truly. People avoided her because of how she looked, not realizing she held a gift that could silence an entire station. A gift powerful enough to make a baby calm instantly. A gift rare enough to move strangers to tears. Her voice had been trapped in subway tunnels and ignored sidewalks, unheard by the people who had the power to help her. Not because she wasn't good enough, but because they were too busy to listen. And now that they were listening, really listening, it felt like time had paused just for her. Ethan held the baby closer, the weight of the moment sinking deep into his chest. He didn't know who this woman was. He didn't know what she had faced, what she had lost, or how she ended up singing in a dirty subway station just to survive. But he knew something else. This voice, this moment, was going to change everything. When she finished, silence filled the station. A heavy, meaningful silence. It was the kind of silence that happens when people forget where they are, forget what they were doing, and for just a moment, remember what it feels like to feel. And then applause. Not polite clapping. Not casual appreciation. Real applause. People clapped like they were in a grand concert hall, instead of a noisy, dirty subway station. The sound echoed through the tunnels, bouncing off metal railings and tiled walls, louder than the trains that thundered past below. Some people cried openly, wiping tears with their sleeves. Others smiled, soft, emotional, almost embarrassed at how deeply the moment had affected them. A few took out their wallets, dropping bills and coins into the woman's small paper cup until it nearly overflowed. But the woman didn't bow. She didn't soak in the attention. She didn't smile, even though she had moved an entire crowd to tears. She only looked at Ethan and at her baby. The applause slowly faded as crowds moved around them again, but the energy stayed, an invisible warmth that refused to leave. Ethan stepped forward carefully, holding the baby close as he approached her. He handed the child back into her arms with gentle hands, as if the child belonged to him. The woman clutched her baby against her chest instantly, protectively. Her eyes shimmered. She whispered, barely audible, "Thank you." Ethan shook his head. "No, thank you." That was unbelievable. But the words felt too small. He wanted to say more, but his throat was tight. The woman started to turn away, as if preparing to blend back into the shadows of the station, back into the life of being unseen. But Ethan couldn't hold back anymore. "Why are you out here?" he blurted out. "You're incredible." You should be singing somewhere professional, anywhere but here." She froze. Her shoulders stiffened. Her grip on her baby tightened. Her head lowered. She stared at the ground for a long moment before she finally lifted her eyes full of exhaustion and memories she never asked for. She looked down at her baby again, her voice cracking softly. "I had a job once," she began. "I used to sing in small cafes, bars, little places that don't even exist anymore." Ethan stayed quiet, letting her speak. Her next words were barely more than breath. "But when my husband died, everything changed." Ethan felt his chest tighten painfully. He wasn't expecting that. The woman took a shaky breath, trying and failing to steady her voice. "He was the one who believed in me," she continued. "He pushed me to sing. He told me my voice mattered, even when no one else listened. And then one night he didn't come home." Her voice quivered. No dramatic storytelling. No exaggeration. Just truth. Raw and sharp. "I kept singing," she said. "I tried. But singing doesn't pay much. Some nights I earned enough for groceries. Some nights nothing. And when I got pregnant, people stopped hiring me. They said I'd be too slow or too distracted. I lost my job. Then I lost the apartment. Then." She swallowed again. "Everything else." Ethan's heart dropped lower with every word. "I tried working," she whispered. "I really tried. But with a newborn, no one wanted to hire me. I couldn't pay rent. I couldn't afford childcare. So we came here." Her tears fell onto the baby's blanket, tiny droplets soaking into the pink fabric. "I sing to earn enough for food," she said, voice breaking in places. "And I sing to keep myself from giving up." The baby shifted against her mother's chest, unaware of the tragedy surrounding her tiny existence. The woman kissed the top of her head softly, as tears continued to fall. People passed by again, now, some glancing with sympathy, others pretending nothing emotional had happened at all. Life resumed, but something inside Ethan had not. He stepped closer, his voice quiet but steady. "You're not out here because you're weak," he said gently. The woman looked up sharply, surprised. She shook her head, a small sad smile forming at the corner of her lips. "No, I'm not homeless because I'm weak." She wiped her face with the back of her sleeve. "I'm homeless because life hit me too fast." The words hung heavy in the air, heavier than anything she had sung. Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat. "How long have you been doing this?" She looked away, shame flickering in her eyes despite having done nothing wrong. "A year," she whispered. "A whole year of singing down here. A year of hoping someone might see me. A year of trying not to disappear." Her voice lowered even more. "But no one ever notices. Not anymore." Ethan straightened his back. Something shifted inside him. Something determined, fierce, protective. The same feeling he felt holding her baby. The same feeling her voice had awakened in him. He looked her in the eyes and spoke firmly. "Well, I'm noticing." The woman blinked, as if no one had said something kind to her in a very long time. Ethan continued, voice stronger. "And I'm not just noticing today. I'm not going to forget you. Not after hearing what you just did." Her lips parted slightly, shocked. A tear slid down her cheek, not one of pain, but disbelief. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever looked at her and seen more than a struggling mother in worn clothes. But Ethan did. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. Ethan wasn't rich. He wasn't a producer. He wasn't famous. He was just a guy behind a phone screen. A tired young man who worked long hours, went home to a tiny apartment, and spent his nights scrolling through videos like everyone else. He didn't have connections. He didn't have influence. But that night, for the first time in his life, being just a guy was enough. After he walked away from the subway station, his heart was still pounding with everything he'd witnessed. The voice, the baby's calm reaction, the mother's pain, the beauty of it all. He sat on the edge of his bed, replaying the video he had secretly recorded when the woman started singing. He hesitated at first. Was it right to post it? Would she mind? Would it help her? But then he remembered her words. No one ever notices. Not anymore. She needed someone to notice. Ethan took a deep breath and uploaded the video. He typed a simple caption. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic. This homeless mother has the voice of an angel. She deserves the world's ears. He hit post. And then he put his phone down. He didn't expect anything. He had work early the next day. He was tired. But the universe had other plans. Within an hour, his phone buzzed with a few likes. Then a few shares. Then a few comments. Who is she? Where is this subway? Is she safe? Does she need help? Ethan refreshed. 10,000 views. His eyes widened. Whoa, that's fast. He refreshed again. 50,000 views. His jaw dropped. He wasn't even fully awake yet, but the world was already watching. By midnight, his phone was vibrating nonstop. Notifications pouring in like rainfall. Celebrities commenting. Musicians duetting the video. People sending messages. Find her. She needs a platform. Help us help her. He barely slept. By morning, 2 million views. By the next day, 10 million. 10 million people listening to a woman the world had ignored for years. Her voice spread like wildfire across TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Reaction channels cried listening to her. Vocal coaches analyzed her tone. Singers begged for a collaboration. News anchors asked, "Who is this subway angel? Where can we find her?" People weren't just touched. They were determined. Determined to help her. Determined to hear more. Determined to make sure she and her baby never slept cold again. The next morning, Ethan rushed back to the subway station. He pushed through crowds, running down the steps 2 at a time. What if she wasn't there? What if she thought the video was a mistake? What if something happened overnight? His stomach twisted as he reached the bottom. But then, he saw her, still in the same corner, still holding her baby, still singing softly, unaware of the tidal wave waiting for her above ground. Except this time, she wasn't alone. Hundreds, literally hundreds, of people surrounded her. Some recording, some crying, some holding signs that said, "We found the angel. You're not alone anymore. Let us help you." The woman looked terrified and confused. She clutched her baby close, unsure if this sudden attention was danger or blessing. Ethan pushed gently through the crowd, raising his hands. "Excuse me. Sorry, coming through. Yes, that's her. Please let me." He finally reached her side. Her eyes widened in recognition. You came back." "Of course," Ethan said breathlessly. "Everything is about to change for you." And he was right. A tall man in a black coat stepped forward. His voice was deep, confident, used to giving orders. "I own a music studio," he said. "Ma'am, I want to offer you a contract. Your voice is extraordinary." The crowd gasped. The woman stared at him, stunned. "A contract? Me?" He nodded seriously. "We want to record your music properly. We want to introduce your voice to the world." Before she could respond, another woman stepped in, this one holding a warm winter coat in her hands. "Please take this," she said gently. "And some food. I brought supplies for your baby too." Someone else stepped forward, a woman with short hair and glasses. "I run a shelter for mothers. We have a room ready for you. Warm beds, clean clothes, safety. You don't have to sleep outside anymore." The homeless mother looked around, overwhelmed. Her lips trembled. Her eyes darted from face to face. She held her baby close, as if afraid this moment would disappear. This can't be real," she whispered shakily. I sing here every day. Nobody ever stops. Nobody ever sees me." A man in the crowd shouted gently, "We see you now." Someone else added, "Your voice brought us here." Another cried, "You deserve a chance." Ethan stepped forward, finally reaching her side. He placed a hand on her shoulder, not forcefully, not possessively, just softly, reassuringly. "It is real," he said, "because your voice finally reached the people it was meant to." She looked at him, tears filling her eyes. Not the tears of hopelessness she had cried before. Not the tears of a mother scared of failing her child. These were different. These were tears of gratitude, raw and powerful. tears of a woman who had been invisible for too long, finally being seen. Her hands shook as she whispered, "I don't know how to thank you." Ethan smiled softly. "You don't have to. Just let the world hear you." The baby cooed, resting her tiny head against her mother's chest, safe, warm, and content. For the first time in a long time, the mother didn't look tired. She looked hopeful. And in that crowded subway station, surrounded by strangers who became supporters, she realized her life had changed. Her daughter's life had changed. All because one person cared enough to stop and listen. 1 month later, everything had changed. The same lullaby Amara once sang in the freezing subway, just to keep her baby calm, just to feel alive for a moment, was now a polished, breathtaking music video. Soft lighting, a warm stage, a little crib in the corner as a symbolic tribute to where the song was born, and Amara no longer shaking from hunger or cold, but glowing with a quiet strength. The video spread across the world like wildfire. 20 million views. People from different countries sent messages saying her voice healed them, comforted them, reminded them of their mothers, their struggles, their own stories of survival. Others said they played her lullaby to help them sleep, to calm their children, to give them peace. The world finally learned her name. Amara Johnson, the subway songbird. No longer that homeless woman. No longer invisible. No longer singing into the noise of a rushing crowd. She now had a small apartment, nothing extravagant, but warm, safe, and filled with hope. A real kitchen. A soft bed. And for the first time, her baby girl had a crib decorated with tiny stars and a mobile that played gentle chimes. Every morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, landing softly on the crib, and Amara would whisper, "We're home, baby. We're finally home." Meals were no longer a question of survival. She cooked real food, warm soups, rice, vegetables, little jars of baby food lined up neatly. It felt surreal. Sometimes she would sit at the table and cry softly, not because she was sad, but because she couldn't believe she'd survived all the nights she thought she wouldn't. And her music? It was no longer echoing off subway tiles. She performed now, on real stages, under real lights, with real crowds cheering for her. People held signs with her name. Children wore shirts that said Subway Songbird. Her story inspired thousands. Every performance began with her looking at her daughter backstage, smiling at the life she almost didn't get to give her. But the biggest moment was yet to come. Her first concert. A huge venue. Tickets sold out in minutes. Reporters lined up outside. People traveled from different cities just to hear her sing live. Backstage, Amara stood in front of the mirror. Her makeup artist finished the final touch of shimmering gold near her eyes. Her hairstylist stepped back. Her manager adjusted her microphone. "You ready?" someone asked. Amara nodded, but her hands were trembling. Not from fear, from disbelief. She had sung in streets, in shelters, in stations where no one listened. But now thousands of people were waiting for her. She stepped onto the stage. Bright lights hit her eyes. The crowd erupted into cheers that shook the entire theater. People stood up, waving their arms, shouting her name. Amara, Amara, Amara. But when she looked across the sea of faces, her breath caught in her chest. There he was, in the third row, phone in hand, eyes shining with pride. Ethan, the man who held her baby. The man who didn't look away when everyone else did. The man who saw her before the world ever did. Her throat tightened with emotion. She walked slowly to the microphone, gripping it gently. The crowd quieted, sensing something important. Amara exhaled shakily, then said in a tender whisper that carried through the entire auditorium, "Thank you for holding my baby that day. And thank you for letting me hold on to hope." A hush fell over the room. Some people wiped their eyes. Some reached for the hand of the person next to them. Ethan swallowed hard, overwhelmed, nodding back at her with tears forming. And then, Amara began to sing. The same lullaby, the same melody, the same heart. Except now, instead of echoing off cold subway walls, it soared freely across a silent, tear-filled audience. Her voice was richer now, stronger, steadier, but still full of the pain and love that shaped her. Every note felt like a story. Every word carried years of struggle and hope. People closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Some hugged their children tighter. Others cried quietly into their hands. Halfway through the song, Amara's baby, now a little older, sitting safely backstage, let out a tiny giggle. It echoed faintly through the speakers, and the audience smiled. It was like life itself was singing along with her. When the final note drifted into the air, the theater was silent for a heartbeat, and then exploded. Standing ovation, roaring applause, people cheering her name with everything inside them. Amara pressed a hand to her heart, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Ethan again, and he mouthed silently, "You deserve this." She smiled, a smile filled with gratitude, strength, and a promise to never forget where she came from. That night, as she carried her daughter off stage, she whispered, "One day, I'll tell you the whole story. How Mommy was lost, and how a stranger helped the world hear her voice." Because sometimes, all it takes is one person who stops, one person who listens, one person who cares, to change someone's entire life. And for Amara Johnson, the world was no longer rushing past her. The world was listening. Sometimes, a single moment of kindness, a single person who stops to listen, can rewrite an entire life. If this story touched your heart, let it remind you, miracles begin with small acts. Like, subscribe, and share this video. You never know whose life it might change next.